Okay, this is a video from my notes. This video is called Talking About Going. I don't even want to say it. This video is called Talking About Going. I'm embarrassed. I haven't really. This video is called Talking About Going Bald. In a wood shop on a moped. So let's dive right in. First, some quick housekeeping about this channel. I made a lot of videos about ADD and Adderall. I made a lot of random videos, and I like making videos. And I also a professional woodworker, and I think I'm gonna do woodworking, but I think I'm gonna do it on a different channel. I don't know. And, you know, because woodworkers on YouTube just want to see woodwork. But here I like to talk about life, guidance, and the main motivation for this video is to get a lot off my chest about this. And also, I know it's something that a lot of men go through alone. And I want to be there for y'all, because I know how it feels. So, a lot of times when I'm working, I'm going to different clients, I'm going to different locations, I'm going to different jobs. I wear a hat with my logo on it, the baseball hat. And I forgot it today, but I didn't really think about it. And I roll up to a client, and he's like, "Hey man, you look different." I was like, "I don't know." You know, I kind of saw what was coming, and I didn't want to talk about it. And he's like, "Do you have kids?" And I was like, "Yeah, I got a kid." And he goes, "Oh, that's why you lose your hair when you have kids." And I was kind of just like, okay, thanks. You know, it doesn't feel good to have someone point it out. And I was thinking, you know, it's hard because I think most people, when they find a picture of themselves as a kid or a teenager, they're embarrassed because they look so dorky or so, you know, cringy, whatever. But when someone who meets me now comes across a picture of me as a teenager, I'm embarrassed because of how good looking I was. And they're like, "Oh," you know, and it hurts. And there's just nothing I can seem to do about it. My Instagram feed has been blowing up with ads about a few things. One is Hair Club, which is what they do is they shave off the middle of your head and just put a carpet rug on your head. And it looks pretty convincing in photographs, but I personally can't live with that lie. And then of course there's FUE, hair transplants, which is, for one thing, expensive. And I'm not willing to throw that money down on that. And you know, it's also a lie. And then there's all these serums, pills, and other topicals that it's just, how much work are you going to do running out the clock? And a lot of the pills, from my research, you know, I always knew I wasn't going to do it, but I always still looked into it and almost thought about it when I was first my hair was first starting to thin. And the hard part about it also is it's a slow process. I'm almost 32 now, and it started probably when I was 25, 26. I started seeing some difference, and because my hair was so thick, it's still really thick around that freaking horseshoe, but then on the top it got thinner, so for a while it was like the thin hair sat on the thick hair, you know, if it was longer. So it started to, at least to me, really show itself, because I was so used to having it. But anyways, you know, I've heard with those pills, you know, you're rolling the dice, because some guys, they can't get sexually aroused. And I think that's kind of, some of these pills I see as a deal with the devil. It's a give and take. For example, you know, I've talked a lot about my relationship with Adderall, and that it's kind of like, hey, you're going to be able to achieve a high level of success when it comes to productivity in a career or creative sense. However, You're going to be weird socially, you're not going to eat, you're not going to sleep. You know, there's a deal. You don't just get those benefits, you have to give something. So I think it's kind of ironic, in, you know, in almost a literal sense, as in not literal as in it as it is, but literary sense, that, you know, I'm taking a pill to have more hair, to have more sex appeal, and yet my sex organ is diminished. I think that's kind of funny. But I'm not even going to dance with that, because I've heard some people have become impotent to the point where, like, their sperm dies, and it's like, I don't even want to dance with that. You know, it's hard, because when I see a mirror, the hardest thing is that I see a reflection or a photograph of myself, and I don't feel like that's me. And that's a real challenge for the ego, because also when I had this beautiful mane of hair, it became a big part of my identity. You know, there were times where people had seen me in public who don't know me, and they may have asked, and it's not like the grocery store, it's like at a party or a concert, and they would ask to touch it because it was so full and beautiful, and I identified with my hair. And now I don't have that. So, you know, when I had that beautiful hair, I'd look in the mirror and be like, fuck yeah. You know, I'd be proud that I was a good-looking guy. And sure, maybe I'm still good-looking, but it's hard to find that confidence in the self when you know that a certain aspect, characteristical aspect of your looks is gone. And there's no... It's kind of a trope in culture that villains and losers are bald, unless you're Jason Statham or The Rock. So I'm not either of those people. I'm me, and I just don't have hair. And you know, do I shave it regularly? I've been shaving it during COVID. Do I get a haircut? It's like I'm never happy. You know, I remember when I wanted to talk about this for a long time. I wanted to write an article called "The Shrinking of the Ego and the Growing of the Head." And while I was writing that never published article, I had gotten a haircut with my wife was there, and normally she didn't come, and she's like, "Do you like it?" And I was like, you know, and even with her, I don't like talking about it because it's embarrassing. It's just embarrassing. And she asked me if I liked my haircut, and I told her, I was like, I'm never gonna like a haircut ever again. You know, it's I don't know, because I spent 25 years having beautiful hair, and that was a part of who I was, and I should have seen it coming. My dad has Merrill pattern baldness, and both my grandfathers, and my brother. Everybody's bald. But even amongst them, I had unique hair. So it was hard to lose something that was so special. And you know, most of my friends still have hair, and that's kind of like, damn, you know, I just feel like I drew the short straw. And to some extent, it's definitely humbling, because it's like, okay, deal with that. You know, part of your life is now you're gonna go through life without coasting on looks, as you may have before. And I don't even, these are blue blocking glasses, I don't even need those. They do make you look a little more interesting when you're bald, right? And you know, sometimes I blamed going bald on Adderall. I started losing my hair on Adderall, and I started probably thinning. First time I noticed it, I was 22, I think. So I mean, it was coming. You know, I noticed I started coming back in the crown. I could see more of my forehead, and I thought, oh, and it's you know, a slow process. But here, 10 years later, it's pretty clear what's going to happen, and no one wants to talk about it. And it's interesting too, because if you're going through it, it may be at the forefront of your mind in a certain way, and then for me, I'd battle with it. I'd be like, oh, I hate this so much. And it's hard, it's really not good for a person to hate the way they look. But nobody really cares but you. And you know, my wife, she loves me, you know, and it's hard because she sees those pictures, she's like, wow, you were, you know, and I'm like, and she, you know, you still are, sure, but it's like, it's a bummer, and but it's something. It feels good to, I guess, talk about, even just to my YouTube channel, all 200 and something of you, and you know, if you Googled being bald and you come to this, I'm here to tell you, it's humbling. Now that you can't use your looks to travel through life as much, what can you nurture? How can you still achieve yourself without focusing on a certain part of your looks you can't control? You can control your physical body, you can control your skills, you can control your sleep, your eat, you know, everything in life, but you don't have much control of your genetics. Of course, body hackers are going to do everything they can to avoid the inevitability of male pattern baldness, I'm sure. And it might be an enticing opportunity for bald men to regenerate their hair. But it's also like, you know, what are you going to do? And it's interesting that certain fields, like I was talking to a friend of mine once about it, candidly, who was a musician, and he was just like, oh, if I started losing it, I would get a transplant because it's part of my career, I gotta look good. And you know, made me think of Phil Collins. What happened to guys like Phil Collins, who can lose their hair and still make it? But it's a strange thing, and it's kind of like a second puberty with your body, because, you know, and you know, in terms of when I hear people who have transitioned genders, which is, you know, that's their thing, and I relate to a certain part of it, and I can't speak for it. I'm not part of that community, and I'm not trying to to muddy the water in any way. But when they say I look in the mirror and that's not me, I identify with that, because I look in the mirror and it's like, no, what? You know, I think I'm still that guy with hair, and even though it's just hair, it has an effect, you know, on your perception of a person. The way someone looks, you know, you shouldn't make critical judgments on a person by the way they look, but the way they look in a subconscious way affects you. Like, I'm sure, you know, in this, you know, I probably, now you're judging me for wearing a hat, but you're not judging me for my poor genetics and saying I probably shouldn't make a baby with him because I want my baby to have hair. I don't know if that's that level of it, and I'm not, if you come to this video looking for someone to give you an escape route from the baldness you're running from, I'm here to tell you there is none, except going inward in your heart and loving yourself, even if you're bald. And that's advice that's so easy to give out but so hard to take, because it's there, and when family members and people bring it up, it's hard to laugh, haha, yeah. And, you know, I've been truly depressed about it and looked at the mirror and tried to, you know, it's like you're trying to put it back in before it all comes out. And, you know, it's just, it's crazy because it's so slow and it's so embarrassing. You know, if someone pantses you and you're naked and everyone sees your nakedness, you pull your pants up and you laugh it off and it's over. And you are embarrassed and you move on. But this is like everywhere you go, it's there. And I wear a hat all the time because I just want to avoid that. I'm embarrassed about it. And, you know, if anyone watching this video has found good methods of personal mantras or ways to cope with that, I'd be open to listening, because I'm still working on, like, healing the wound that is the slow departure of my hair, and it'll probably get to the point where I just go cue ball all the time or embrace the horseshoe. And I mean, it's not that bad, you know, it's not that bad, but it's only leaving more. And if I was always this way, I wouldn't mind. but I've just get more and more into this way, and it almost makes me reluctant to do things like make YouTube videos, because I have a lot of things I want to talk about with the online community, and I almost stop myself sometimes because of my insecurity about losing hair. And that's stupid, because it's stupid. And I should just do the work. And if you... Because I ask myself, what, I think people don't want to watch my videos because of my hair? Maybe. Maybe they do. And maybe people don't want to watch my videos because I'm against Adderall. Maybe. And maybe people don't want to watch my videos because they like other videos. It's like... It's crazy to get lost in the locus of your mind, making up all this bullshit that only applies to you. It's self-centered and narcissistic to think that I can't share myself unless I feel pretty or attractive. And so I'm gonna work hard to just stop. Just be like, yes, I've lost my hair. And at parties, when people mention, oh, you're losing it a little bit, that's really the hardest part of it. And I imagine if I was single and dating, it'd be very challenging for me to feel confident going into something, and you know, to present confidence when I'm trying to impress a partner with my comfort with myself. You know, and a lot of times I think that in those kinds of relationships, it's really not about whether you have hair or not, it's whether you're comfortable in your own skin. Sure, some people don't date bald guys. That's fine. But I think most people, when they're looking for a partner, they want to see someone who loves themselves. Because if you present to a potential mate that you love themselves, it shows them that loving you is possible. You know, if I love myself, you see me loving myself, you're like, that man is capable of receiving love because he's giving it to himself. So it's hard for me to love my bald head because it doesn't feel like me. But even if it's not me, I can love it. You know? That head holds my brain, which holds my experiences, which is the gift of life. And it's amazing that, you know, I don't have a calculator, but probably hundreds of times a day I remind myself that I'm losing my hair. In one way, shape, or form. I may see it in the rearview mirror. When I grab that hat to put it on, it's like a conditional behavior to cover up what I'm ashamed of. And I'm ashamed that I am one of the high statistic whatever men who do this. And there's, you know, and it's like it's almost like if you meet someone who's always talking about their weight, you can bet that they're noticing if you're over or underweight or in good shape because they're focused on that. And I find myself the same looking at men's hair and almost thinking that, like, you know, when you meet that man who's 80 years old with a full head, it seems like he's younger than you, or he has some kind of vitality that you don't have because he's held on to this hair. And maybe it's possible that I lost it from not sleeping enough, not eating enough, too much activity in certain ways, and that it's just, maybe I have run myself dry, and that can't be taken back. You know, there's some new age or dietary almost myths that you can get it back, but you don't hear those stories. The only time in culture you really see someone get it back is someone like Elon Musk, who gets a lot of money and invests some of that money back into his scalp through taking some hair out of the back of his head and putting it on the front. So it's kind of just, you have to, you know, you can make that choice. It's available for money. And I don't think I'm going to do that. Pretty set I'm not doing that. However, I don't have the money. I don't know if I had the money, I'd start considering it. But at this point, I think that is avoiding the inevitable, and also, for me, it eliminates the challenge I've given to myself of loving myself in this way. Although it's tempting. And if those are your choices, it's not the wrong choice. And if you choose to do a wig or whatever, that's your choice. But for me, it's, you know, like life's challenges are your lessons. And I figure that this lesson is almost like in your youth, that hair you had made you vain. And it made you, it gave me this certain pride. And maybe I didn't respect that power properly. So, you know, giveth, taketh away. So I don't know if that presented a solution for anyone who's struggling with the diminishing of their topical follicles, but I hope it provides some sense that you're not alone, and I feel alone in it, you know. Sometimes I talk to my brother about it, but he's embraced it, man. And I'm proud of him. And I hope I can get to that same level of embracement where you just, this is me, man. It's gone. And people say stuff, and you're like, yeah, alright, what are we doing? You know, we're not, it's like all this nervous energy goes into the one moment where someone might be like, oh, you lost your hair, and you're like, yeah. And it's like, oh no! It's like, no one cares. No one cares, but except for you. So if you can change the way you feel about it, then you change the way you feel about it. And if you can't, you can do something about it. Alright, y'all. I hope I helped you. See you later.
I think the part of it that's really potentially damaging is seeing losing your hair like a failure. Like somehow I'm responsible. And somehow, if I had done X, Y, and Z, it wouldn't have happened. That's where the shame comes from. Like it's a mistake I made.